Sales is a tough job in cybersecurity, but does that make it okay to bombard a CISO for a meeting?
You're listening to Defense in Depth.
Welcome to Defense in Depth. My name is David Spark. I am the producer of the CISO series, and joining us, a longtime good friend of the show, been on every show on the CISO series, none other than Sean Bowen, who is now the Microsoft Deputy CISO for the gaming division. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm here as a new person. I think I've spoken to you in all three of my corporate roles.
I believe you have. Our sponsor for today's episode is Noma Security. Secure your entire data and AI lifecycle with Noma Security. We're going to explain how they do that a little bit later in the show. Today's topic is something that I know every CISO is passionate about, and that's the way sales vendors interact with CISOs. It's how this whole CISO series began. But ask any CISO, and they'll tell you what a horror show their inbox is from vendor emails. Mark Ashworth, who's the CISO over at First Bank, shared on LinkedIn that he gets about 200 per day, and everyone wants 15 minutes of his time. He gave some pointers on how vendors can stand out in the cacophony, suggesting they keep messages to the point, focus on what problems a product solves and how it differentiates, and provide links to documentation if the CISO wants to dig deeper. Sean, I'm sure your inbox has a similar tale of woe that Mark Ashworth has, as do many CISOs. Let me ask you this. Why are we constantly repeating what we kind of all think is the obvious here of the vendor messages are too much?
Well, I think technology has become an evil in this particular case because there's no thought and there's no genuine connection being made. And so when we get, let's make up a rough number, 80% of the messages are just automatically generated, the 20% that are actual people trying to connect are being tossed in with that.
Right. And it's been given a bad name.
Yeah. And it's funny, as you mentioned, as soon as you announce where you go, I'm going to start at Microsoft expecting, I should be able to maintain within a week, I was already in a couple hundred emails from vendors. I'm like, I don't even know my email address. Like, how'd you figure this out? And you just like arbitrarily making them up. And then some of them are hilarious. Like I just got one today that I deleted that didn't go into my spam. And they were trying to sell me a browser. I'm like, do you know that we make a browser? we happen to do that. And so it's just low effort. And I get it. It's the same tactic that threat actors use for phishing, right? Send out 1,000 phishing emails and you'll get 20 people to click it.
And that's a great rate. You don't even need 25. You essentially annoy 995 in the process.
So, I mean, not to call sales vendors fishers, but they are. They're doing the same exact tactic.
Well, this is just a setup. We actually have a lot to talk about, and we're going to actually go into this far more nuanced and talk about very positive things. This is not a vendor bashing session. We want some positive outcome for everybody. And the person to join us, we haven't had on for a while. I'm thrilled that he's back again. It is the CISO for the VF Corporation, Ken Athanasio. Ken, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks very much, Dave. Great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. I do have some opinions on this particular subject.
That's why we asked you to join.
What would a successful engagement look like?
Tim McLaren of GuidePoint Security said, quote, "There are so many security solutions today, and it isn't always easy for salespeople to find the customers with the problem that you can solve. So it just ends up being a numbers game." This is what you were saying, Sean. As you said, sales is hard, and hunting for new business is by far the hardest. So it is generally inside sales teams trying to get 5 minutes of your attention because they are paid to get meetings or they don't keep their jobs. One company in St. Louis had a unique approach to helping with this problem/solution alignment. They hosted an annual vendor conference where they laid out their objectives, projects for the next 12 months. They told vendors in attendance that they would commit to a meeting with them if they had a solution for one of their upcoming projects, but made it clear that they didn't want to hear about solutions that didn't align with those objectives. All right, well, that's pretty aggressive, and that actually puts the cost and them in the driver's seat. It's interesting. I know vendors would have loved that. Mark Timothy Mandrino, who's with Terry's Grilled Jacks, said, quote, "Sales and marketing need to do a better job nailing down the ROI, use cases, what other customers in the prospect space that may be applicable, and so on. It's a double-sided issue. Too many sloppy salespeople, too many busy, unqualified prospects and way too many use cases for salespeople can't articulate until they do speak to a live audience to flush them out. I prefer for someone to just tell me to take a hike, he is a salesperson, so I don't spin my wheels or waste my time with them. Salespeople are busy as well, and it's our job to open doors and obviously sell something to someone willing to listen. We need to fine-tune our story and definitely shorten the pitch. I agree. All right, we're getting nods here on this side. Sean, it's an interesting take. And I've said this before, I think the problem just stems from measurement. They're measured the wrong way, and the wrong way of being measured, and I don't know the right way, not that I have the answer, but the wrong way just creates this environment where you're getting hammered and it's numbers. Does it boil it just down to that?
Yeah, it does. But I want to jump on something real quick that Mark said about, he goes, I prefer someone just to tell me to take a hike. And I appreciate that he has that. The problem is I've tried that earlier on in my career where I would reply to everyone and go, no, thank you. I'm not looking for that. That's not on my roadmap. Hey, that is on my roadmap from 2 years. And immediately I get a reply back. Well, can I get 30 minutes next week? Or what month, what quarter is that? And so it's like almost pointless for us to reply and try to be courteous to let them down easy.
But again, it's not everybody.
No, I know. But Mark's caught up in this, the fact that there are, back to the point of people being pushed. And I think the conversation of too many unqualified prospects, sloppy salespeople, like that whole piece of people not being experts in it, they're just doing it. To your measurement piece, though, I almost don't want to put it on the salespeople entirely.
No, it's their managers.
Well, no, but I mean, like, not even on the sales division, like the companies itself. We have this attitude, particularly, I think, in the US, probably more so than anywhere else, of if you're not growing, you're failing. And sometimes if you just have 5 solid businesses that are paying bills and whatever it happens to be, 5 customers, 10 customers, whatever you need, and you're doing really good at that, that might be good enough. But with investors, they want to see, return. So they're getting pushed to continually grow. And like sometimes, especially as a CISO, like I didn't learn this until later on. I didn't realize I had to know this. But when I'm going with a private company or a startup, whether they're in Series B, C, whatever they are, I need to look at their funding rounds to determine if their roadmap is going to be their roadmap. Because if their funding was not aligned with where they're at today, then I know they're not going to worry about developing their existing product. They're going to have to start creating new products to appease their VCs. And that means for me as a customer, while your product is good today, you're not going to be where I need you to be in 12 months because of the pressure as the business. And that's where I mean the numbers piece is, why not just be really good at the job you're doing? Right? Why does it always have to be growing?
And this is, by the way, what Andy Ellis says. He says, you want to get recognized, be incredibly awesome what you do, and I will hear about it, as does everyone. Ken, let me throw this to you. The numbers game, we hear that all the time. I'm concerned with the way they're being measured, but as Sean points out, it really goes all the way to the very top, not just the direct managers, doesn't it?
100%. I really feel for the sales guys that are out there. I think it's a very, very tough job. There is an amazing amount of pressure that they're put under, and that's why you end up getting Sean, et cetera, get bombarded with just an enormous amount of contacts. And to your point earlier, they're not very good contacts, right? Most of them are automated. Even the ones that aren't automated are not very well thought out. They don't have good pitches. They don't present their product very quickly and very well. I like Andy's comment there that, if you're really, really good at what you do, I'll hear about you. And to be honest, that's where I get most of my knowledge about new products. It's not from sales guys, right? I don't listen to sales guys, to be honest. I get so many emails. I just literally ignore them. Unless I know who that person is and I've had conversations with them before, I don't even bother responding. There's just too much that comes through. And to Sean's point earlier, if you do actually respond, it's almost like responding to those scam text messages that you get. Hi, how you doing? Right? You don't respond to those right either, right? Because it's a hook, right? They're just trying to get you on the line. I feel really bad for the sales guys that are out there. I think it's a really tough job. I'm not a sales guy. I don't know exactly the best way to incent them and to how to get them to really focus in on things, but it's not something I'd ever want to do.
What do most people think it is? And what's the reality?
Dalton Capps of Hook Security said, It has been beaten into sales heads that it takes an average of 9 touch points to get a hold of someone. It's become gospel in sales circles, thus the typical 15 touch point cadence. This is a good thing to keep in mind because this is how they've been taught to sell. And Kevin Mallon of Content Square said, quote, the majority of meetings are booked on touch number 3, 4, 5, etc. So while it may piss off a few, the data says to keep cadences longer and not stop after your first or second email. This is why everyone's getting annoyed, apparently. And John Hayden of Trend Micro said, quote, the root of the issue is, in my opinion, honest opinion, growth. Every company, whether old or new, is expected to grow, sometimes at unreasonable rates. This is just what you were saying, Sean. We're expected to grow more month over month, quarter over quarter, over a course of year over year. If you're publicly traded, the pressure is even greater. So while most of us would love to sit back and do nothing more than let you guys do your research and contact us when you're ready, reality is we can't. I think all of these are so on money in that this is what we're taught. We're taught to harass you. And then John's comment, which we've heard, but it gets even more, is we are under so much pressure that this is the way we're required to behave. And so we're in this really tough cycle, aren't we, Ken?
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said earlier, right? This is not a job I'd want. Yeah, 100% correct, right? It's like Chinese water torture, right? I mean, the constant drip, drip, drip of emails until either you succumb to the pressure and you actually respond, right? Or you put in a rule to just block their emails, right, automatically, so you never actually see them in your inbox, which I've done, by the way. So 100% totally agree with those comments. The idea that it takes half a dozen to a dozen touch points before they actually get a response back, well, it's probably accurate because the first 5, 6 times you maybe didn't need to talk to them. You don't have time to talk to them. You didn't even see the email, right? So even if it's a product that you're interested in, the question is whether or not you're going to respond to them because you didn't have time to or you didn't see it. So makes perfect sense. They're probably 100% accurate, but I still liken it to Chinese water torture.
Sean, what do you take when a salesperson says, well, look, we've been taught we got to go after you 4, 5, 6, and by like number 9, you're going to finally say yes, if not you, somebody else that we hit 8 times before. And they're just like, I'm just doing my job is usually the response.
Yeah, they definitely have the I'm doing my job piece. If they think 9 times is enough, they need to talk to my wife to learn how hard-headed I am. So, and definitely not 9 times. No, it's your point of blocking them. I had one of my companies I went to a while back. The guy put the blocks at the exchange level, blocked the entire domain. So when I came in, I'm trying to reach out to people I know, like, hey, I want to work with this particular product, and I'm not getting their emails, and I had to find out why.
This has come up on our show before of how dangerous that is.
He blocked like hundreds of vendors at the exchange level, like the entire domain. I'm like, no, we need to undo that. Like, but I appreciated what he was protecting the whole company. I'm like, hey, man, good job. I get the whole, this is my last attempt. And then I get 4 of those last attempts. I'm like, okay, what is it? Or just give me this one reply and then I'll leave you alone. And it's begging. I mean, just think of this as a regular person. Like if you came up to your front door, knocked on your door every day at dinner time and just begged you to wash your car, whatever it is, like you would just be like, go away. Like you'd be so annoyed.
That brings up a good point. And I run into this a lot in that there's this sense that other people react differently than they do. Like, look, you're a salesperson. If you got hundreds of requests for your time, would someone just out of the blue saying, hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time? Would you actually give it? Someone who's not in your industry, has nothing to do with this, would you give it? Like we who's asking others don't behave the way we want others to have.
Right. Turn it around on them.
I like it. Let's get all of the CISOs to send emails to a vendor each week. If they don't get on our calendar by the next day, they're out.
Well, the vendors would love that. You're really setting something up there.
That might not be a great idea, Sean.
It's not CISOs they want contacted.
We're going to have to lose a couple of CISOs in this, right? 1,000 of us send an email, 5 are going to have to take one for the team. I don't want to call them keyboard bullies, but it's close to it in the sense of, would you do this in person? And unfortunately, there are some that do this in person. Like if you go to a conference, they will corner you and they're nowhere near their booth. They followed you somewhere. They saw you.
Someone just being friendly and saying hello
Yeah, they're being friendly. Sure they are, right?
Look, I'm being on their side
Of
here.
course they are.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm saying I appreciate the game, right? I appreciate what they're doing. But to Ken's point earlier, like I remember very distinctly one of the very first times I met Ken was in Miami. I know exactly where we were. He had just come off of a keynote and I cornered him. I said, Ken, I want to hear more about what you did. I want to know who your partner was in the company that helped you get there. And he gave me the contact information, whatever. And so like I make phone calls to people all the time. Or if I see their logo, the company on the thing, I'm not going to listen to the sales pitch. I'm going to call my buddy at that company. Or I just put a feeler on. We have enough secret forums that CISOs collaborate on that I just put out a feeler like, hey, has anybody ever worked with this company? What's your thoughts on this? Or I'm looking for a product in this space. And that goes well. And this goes back to the comments earlier of if you're really good, we're going to know about you and we're going to reach out. And when we reach out, just be an ally to the problem, not go right into sales mode.
Before I go on any further, I do want to tell you about our absolutely spectacular sponsor, and that would be Noma Security. The rush to embed AI into applications has created incredible innovation for enterprises, but with that innovation comes new risks. That's where Noma comes in, the first application security platform built to secure the entire data and AI lifecycle. From securing your AI supply chain to protecting AI applications and runtime, Noma detects and prevents threats like misconfigured data pipelines, vulnerabilities in notebook environments, malicious models, and adversarial AI attacks like prompt injection. With a single platform that integrates seamlessly across your AI tools, code, and application SDKs, Noma empowers AppSec teams to secure AI applications without disrupting data engineering and AI teams' day-to-day workflows. Fortune 500 companies are already using Noma to bridge the gap between security and AI teams, delivering complete visibility, security, and compliance across the data and AI lifecycle. You can learn more when you head over to noma.security. That's NOMA.security.
What are they looking for?
Eric Rosenberg of BHM Healthcare Solutions said, quote, "It has become hard to filter all the junk over the last year with so much spam, aka sales emails, coming in with no relevance or poorly done. 100%. We are considering easy ways to block the domains of the many companies that overdo it." And Jason Kierstead of Symbian said, quote, "Sales teams need to link in a 2-minute or less demo video. Do not expect to, quote, schedule a demo with nothing but an email description. If your product does not have a publicly available demo video, it is assumed vaporware. People do not have time for this stuff. If the demo video is interesting, then the lead will follow." Oh, I'm going to double down on Jason. Drives me crazy when there's no demo video and it has the book of demo video. And I'll say something that I've heard from many CISOs. I don't click on that book of demo video because I do not want to be put in the sales funnel. Ken, you're nodding your head.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, good Lord. You don't ever click on any link in one of those sales emails because, oh, I see you downloaded such and such, or oh, I see you are interested in this or that. And it's just, again, just another hook, right? So the idea of having a publicly available demo video is fantastic. Putting a link in an email.
And may I ask you, have you ever done research, saw a video, and did actually follow up?
Like maybe once.
Okay. It has happened.
Again, I'll go back to what Sean said earlier, right? When I'm looking for a new product, I don't go out and talk to a bunch of vendors, right? I talk to my peers, right?
And we hear this a lot.
I go find out, okay, who used this? Or I have this problem. What have you guys used to solve this problem? I'm looking for a use case that's proven value. Right. And I get that from my peers. I don't get that from a sales guy.
So I'm just going to push back on that just a little bit. And I want your take on this, Sean, is Alan Alford has brought this up and he says this is the way most of the communications happens. The problem with that model is you get into an echo chamber. And for new entrants, it's very difficult to get in because no one's used the company XYZ who's brand new in the market. So it requires at least one person to go out, understand them, and to bring that knowledge into the group. And his attitude is, well, I can't wait for other people to find out for me, so I go do it. And he had a kind of more systematic way that he was learning about vendors. What do you think about that sort of the fear of the echo chamber, Sean?
I think that's down to the organization. You're normally a startup very early on if no one's used you at all. And then you're going to be welcomed in that same concept. You're not going to be given a big chunk of the organization, and we're not going to heavily rely on that particular product because it's in a beta trial state of development as well as in our environment. We don't want to commit to long term on it. I'm not afraid to be a first in an organization. This comes down to now that company and where we talked about being a partner versus a vendor. Like if they're just trying to sell and get me on their list and put my logo on their company website, then that's not a relationship I want to be in, no matter how good their product is, because I'm going to be constantly treated as meat and not a part of the development of the program. And so like we like to refer to the products as partners, and that means you're helping me get better. And I'm also helping you get better. Like I'm going to give you feedback on the product and share it where it is. And so the way I've kind of summed them up is if you're looking for a sales close, you're a vendor. If you're looking to better the environment, you're a partner. And the interesting thing about CISOs, it's kind of weird in the sense of relative to the other business executives. We are probably the most collaborative position in all of the business. Like CFOs, COOs, CHROs, they don't collaborate with their other company peers like we do, because we recognize that in most cases, we're non-competitive. Our competitor is the threat actor. And so we immediately want to share information with each other. And we're not out here going, oh, well, I have a better antivirus, I'm not going to share it with my other company. We want them to get hacked. And we don't think of it like that. So when you have this mentality of highly collaborative, wanting to see each other get better at cybersecurity, and then you meet a company that's selling a product who doesn't care to help the industry like we do, like we will help each other.
That's a really good point. This is why, and I hear this from CISOs, would love to get both of your feedback. CISOs love to see vendors sponsoring and supporting groups like ISACA, OWASP, B-Sides, like that, because those communities are based on that. ISSA too, for that matter.
This is something I was going to mention, right? What I get real value out of is when you have one of those types of organizations, and there's a bunch of them out there, right? They do a little bit of vetting first, right? So they look at, hey, these are some up and coming vendors. These are some interesting stuff, right? That we vetted the product. It looks like it's real. It solves an existing problem. And then they bring those vendors, they bring them to those gatherings, right? And then you get an opportunity for that vendor to actually present to 40, 50, 60, 100 CISOs, depending on how large it is. And we all get the chance to see that at once, but this isn't a cold call, right? And we can walk out of the room anytime we want, but this is a vendor that organization has vetted and says, look, this looks like a viable product and it looks like it solves a problem that you guys have actually articulated is a big problem.
What's the issue here?
Brian D. McCarthy of 327 Solutions said, quote, lifelong salesperson here. Gaining access to the right person is one of the most challenging endeavors, especially in our seas of gray noise across social and email. A dialogue is usually where most relationships are built, not out of a cold email or LinkedIn engagement. I think value and trust must be present in any communication, or the effort are moot and tire everyone out. And Tom Happ of TrueLead said, quote, I also believe that leading with value is a key, rather than asking for a call without establishing any need. I think some vendors have an arrogance that their product or service will solve all your issues. I'm going to go hit on that one. I'll start with you, Sean. The thing that we hear from CISOs is, tell me what you do and tell me what you don't do, because that is a trust builder. If you think you can solve everything, that's where the trust goes out the window. Sean?
100%. And I also think for me personally, bashing a competitor isn't going to bode well for you. And I'm not saying that you might be better or not better than another competitor. A lot of times it's a different use case. I think you'll probably at some point in this mention Andy's comment of there's typically 4 or 5 vendors that do this well. If you stick with them or whatever, there's some quote that Andy's got. I know you've said it before, but it's basically like, if I have this environment, your product might be the best for it. But if I have a different environment, your product might be the worst for it. And so going in and immediately trying to compare products, let me do that. I'm an expert in that space. I know my environment better. And so to your point, if you're trying to tell me you can solve everything, or if you can do something better than the existing product I have, like, you don't know my environment well enough to say that. And so there's a lot of assumptions that come on there. Brian's comment about gaining access to the quote, right person is a key thing, because for me, in my past roles as a CISO, I didn't choose the product. I might have introduced the product to my team, but the team that's using it I want them to pick the product because I would never force my team to use a product just because I liked using it. I want them to be invested in the decision of that product and how they work inside their team, whether it's GRC or SOC or engineer, whatever it is. I want them to be part of that decision-making process. And I might share with my experience some insights that they hadn't thought of. But for the most part, I'm not the right person. Like, I'm one of the people that it's involved, but it's the next level down that really needs to understand your product. And so if you're immediately just discarding them, which I've seen, like, oh, we only want to talk to the CISO, like, why? I'm not the person you should be talking to. And so I immediately look at you. You don't understand the organizational structure of a CISO's responsibility.
Now, I always felt this to be true, but it's interesting. I just recorded with Gary Hayslip, and I thought he would answer kind of like what you just did. But he said, no, I do select the products, and I actually work with my team to select them, but I am. So it's not always true that the CISO staff is selecting. Sometimes the CISOs are at both sides. But, I mean, again, every organization is different. What about you, Ken? Are you selecting, or is your staff bringing stuff to you?
There's a couple points I want to touch on, right? I tend to have my staff actually go through and look at the products and give me an opinion. And I participate in those selection processes, right? At the end of the day, it is my decision. But you know what? I mean, if my guys come to me and they say this one's great and this one's poo, I'm not going to go for the one that they say is poo. That's just not going to happen.
Because the bottom line is, if there's anyone you trust, it's your own staff.
Right. Exactly. 100%. Going back to the partner commentary we had earlier, right? One of the things that I do rely upon some of my VARs, right, is that V. I actually look for value added resellers. And that V is the partnership that I build with those guys and make sure they understand, what I'm looking for, what I expect to see, what my strategic vision is, and what my initiatives are. And I expect them to do some vetting. That's another part of that V. Right, of products before they introduce any vendor to me, right? So building that relationship with a really strong VAR that actually has a V. There's a lot of them out there that are just, hey, I just want to push an invoice. But there's others out there that really do some good work. And those are the ones that I want to partner with.
Well, let us bring it to the end there. And let me ask you this question, Ken. Is there a quote here that you really liked that you want to sort of double down on and call out?
I think I just did, right? I mean, that whole idea of building a partner relationship with a VAR, and once you establish a good relationship with a particular vendor, making sure that that vendor is treating you as a partner and you're treating them as a partner, right? They're not just an order taker, right? They're actually there to help you advance your program. And depending upon what breadth they have or what focus they have, right, maybe the advancement is a narrow one, or it may be a fairly broad one. But going back to the VAR comment, right, most VARs have some pretty good knowledge about a wide spread of tools.
And another group that has a widespread of knowledge, and wondered if you do value their advice and their recommendations, and that is venture capitalists, VCs, who specifically work with cyber companies. Do you like?
I do. I've actually worked with a number of VCs in the past. I've actually participated on the board of a couple companies as an outside board member, independent board member, and those are very interesting engagements. You got to be a little bit careful with some of the VCs because, they're pushing their product too, right? It's all about sales and growth.
It's two-sided here. Is yes, they're pushing the product, but at the same time, it's like, well, they wouldn't have invested in this if they didn't think it was good.
That is correct. And the other thing that they're also very interested in is understanding your opinion of a particular product, right? So they listen very, very hard, right? That helps because if you're at a very early stage with one of these products, you can actually help influence the direction of that particular product.
All right. I throw this one to you, Sean. Your favorite quote and why?
Well, I was going to jump on that VC thing. There's also VCs that are well established and they are trustworthy and they'll give you your opinion on products even they don't want to invest in. But then there's a lot of startup VCs that have the same mentality as the startups that we're complaining about. So something to be aware of. My quote, I'm going to go with Jason about including a demo or not making it publicly available. And I want to ask Ken a question just because this is a conversation that you and I have had, Dave, have had this with other products. Just in general, gatekeeping information, whether it's a demo or a white paper that they wrote that you have to sign up on a form. What's your thought on that, Ken? Because I believe just put it out there because I'm going to either put fake information in there to get the access. And then if that doesn't work, like they send it to your email, then I just don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. And so I'm curious what your take is on that.
100%. Invariably, every time I've succumbed to the gatekeeper and actually given my 2 coins to cross the river Styx, right? What you get isn't worth it, right? So you basically just give them a line into you, and it usually is something that is just not high quality and not useful.
And then you feel burned. And then that is not a good relationship making move.
Yeah, and then you have to hide in your email and go, I got to set up an unsubscribe already.
Yeah, well, you feel like a sucker. Like, they got
Yep,
me.
yeah.
But hold it. Let me ask you, when you send it a fake email, I wonder if you do this because I do this. Do you put in an insulting name for an email address?
I don't necessarily put an insulting name. I'll put something like, be better, share with the community.
Oh, you are far kinder than I am.
Well, maybe I do want the product. Like, I don't know. But like, if to your point, if you're going to start off with something like that, where I'm going to immediately, like, it's not worth it. If it's worth it, then share it. Like, I'm an open knowledge, open communication kind of person. Like, share this. I'm not on these podcasts getting paid. I'm sharing my opinion to help better the community. And if you wrote a white paper that requires just a link for an email, like, just make that available and share that with the community.
And you know what? If it's a quality white paper, you'll probably share it with somebody else too, because you'll be like, hey, you got to read this. This is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to have your logo on it. And now if it touches us, I'm going to reach out to you.
And also, I point out too, there are certain things, and I'll call it like the Verizon DBIR, stuff that comes from Duo, that I hear from CISOs again and again that they love the research, love the stuff that comes out from them. If you get that kind of response, you've hit a home run there. It's unbelievable.
I'll name Kenna. I mean, I know they're Cisco something or whatever they're called, but Kenna's like 8-part vulnerability research paper. I still have those downloaded and I review them every once. Like, that was incredible. If you want to say it's from marketing, cool, whatever. I'm sure someone thought of it from marketing, but the research in it was truly valuable, and I have them saved because of it. And now they're etched as the original name that they were because of what they contributed to the community. And it wasn't because of sales emails.
That's right. No, it was actually providing something of value, right? That's the best hook that they can possibly give you, is actually provide you something of value and, get it in your head that, hey, this was great. This was something that these guys did that was good for me. Let me look at what else they can do for me.
There you go. That's the hook. We've closed with the ultimate hook. Thank you very much. I want to thank our sponsor, Noma Security. Remember, go to their website, noma.security, to secure your entire data and AI lifecycle. I want to thank our guest, who is the CISO of VF Corporation, Ken Athanasio. Also, Sean Bowen, who is now at Microsoft Gaming as the Deputy CISO. Love that you're there. Have you been playing any new games? Quick, Sean.
New Call of Duty dropped a couple days ago and saw a lot of people playing it during the workday. And I was like, oh, is this what we're supposed to be doing? So I did not get that memo or approval yet.
User testing.
Yeah, that's it. User testing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our audience. We greatly appreciate your contributions and for listening to Defense in Depth.
We've reached the end of Defense in Depth. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss yet another hot topic in cybersecurity. This show thrives on your contributions. Please write a review, leave a comment on LinkedIn or on our site, CISOseries.com, where you'll also see plenty of ways to participate, including recording a question or a comment for the show. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, contact David Spark directly at david@CISOseries.com. Thank you for listening to Defense in Depth.